Good afternoon. Welcome to Boiler Room. This is either the second or third in our collections little series that we're doing. We're joined today by Keith and Johnny of Optimo, two of Glasgow's probably furthest reaching DJs,
Perhaps.
if you would admit yourself. For those that don't know, Optimo is a long-running resident club night at Sub Club. It ran for 17 years.
It did not.
No?
It ran for
7
about
years.
12 and a half.
Oh, 12 and a half years. Well, that's
12
my
and a half,
research out the
yeah.
window. And recently started up again in the slightly different guise.
That's true. That's
Yeah.
true.
I guess
So
it's 17 years since we started,
Right.
and it was originally a weekly night, and out of that we became a touring entity that played in other places, started various labels, remixes, and those various projects happen under the Optimo umbrella.
Yeah. Basically, two guys that are heroes of mine. I'm sure they're heroes of a lot of people tuning in. True career DJs, I'd say.
Well, if in the fact that it's the only job that we've ever
Yeah.
ever had, yeah.
So we're going to be playing some stuff from their collection. They're going to be chatting about how these records have affected them over the years and how they've gone down the clubs or at home mainly.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the records we chose for today are things that are really, really important to us that maybe we would play if we got the chance on a night, but they're perhaps not so focused on the dance floor. I think we've always been about just music in general. Obviously, when we go out and DJ, it's to try and get a dance floor to have a good time, but there's lots of other sides to what we're into as well.
maybe speak. I don't know, a bit for Keith here as well. Yeah, I think maybe we wouldn't consider ourselves record collectors as such, more as music fans and record lovers. And you know, I don't think Keith has some very unusual and very rare records. None of them, you know, they might not be in perfect condition because he plays them, you know. Yeah. So,
but I think that's the important part about the record collecting thing. For us, record collecting implies some sort of weird fetishism and elitism. It's more we're just music collectors, and that happens to manifest itself in having a lot of records. But we don't really fetishize the records as objects and keep them in pristine condition. For us, they're working tools, really.
I mean, the record on there, maybe I brought it today, for example. I haven't thought about it for a long time, but you were talking about the idea behind the show, and I brought it because it was significant to me. It's a record that was very popular at the first club I ever DJ'd at, like in about 1988, which was a reggae club in Sauchiehall Street in Glasgow, and actually it was a Thursday night, and they used to let nurses in for free. And it's a record. It's a dub version, actually, of Night Nurse by Gregory Isaacs.
For nurses that are into dub.
It's also particularly well known as it's used in an advert for cold remedy, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yes, aye, it was indeed.
I think I could probably guess what this one is. Let's run it.
house or a mini mansion. In my father's mansion or mini room.
Some of them say them are lost. Some of them say them are not DJ. Ask them about the reason, and they don't know. Some of them praise of July. Say they won't go to Zion.
Wouldn't carry ya. Them have to leave the barrier. King Solomon minds as Hyman minds. King Solomon minds as Hyman minds. Daniel were cast in the lion's den, but yes, he were delivered. Foolish dog, yashed over the shadow. Leg of the bone, lose all, get a fall beyond the wall so tall. Jib Jib guy got them is the quest. Got me, you tune into Quanti Jubilar. You tune into the most sounds in town. In my father's house or mini mansion. In my father's mansion or mini room. What you hands, what you do, and what you hear is what you hear. Watch your feet where it step. God the Father up above, looking down in Babylon. There's a Father up above, looking down in Babylon. Watch the words, what you say. And what you hear is what you hear. Watch the things you do. Some of them near Remy Naya. And some of them are singing Naya.
So what kind of time was it that you were playing in clubs again? This kind of music, and
I sort of I fell into DJing by accident. I was just helping a friend out, an African guy who I was friendly with when I first moved to Glasgow in about 87 or 88, and he became ill, and he had a weekly club night, you know, and he needed somebody to go and play the records. And I'd never done it before,
right?
but I had a lot of records.
Yeah.
I had a lot of reggae and dub records, and we used to talk about that, chat about that, and he had a lot of great African records as well, and so I kind of minded his club for a while, and but you know, I had to get a lesson on how to use the turntables and stuff in the first night.
It's a pretty shoddy mixing at the start.
I didn't.
No,
I had no idea.
I
about
think
the
when we both
concept,
started,
like-
no one mixed. I didn't know what mixing was. I thought the very first gig I ever did, I thought the pitch control was the volume. I mean, literally, you'd never seen anyone mix at that
Yeah.
point, so no one knew.
We didn't have a Ron Hardy in this town really, you know, and so we had nothing to go on, you know, and it wasn't until like literally things happened so fast, like a year later, when you know, started to do parties with you know, the Chicago house records that we've been buying, and trying to put those together, and then it was a sort of frenzy one, like Keith would go into parties and after clubs, and there was a queue of DJs lining up to play, and
I mean, for me, it was a little bit different because I'd been really into all sorts of electronic music just before house, and that was when I first started DJing, and I was kind of on a mission to get people into all this electronic music, but people hated it. They would be like, you know, why are you playing this music with drum machines? This is just shit. And they would get really, really angry. But in a period of from there to 1 year later, people couldn't get enough of drum machines.
Yeah.
And now we're at a point where people only want to hear drum machines and trying to play anything without a drum machine. People, why aren't you playing music with drum machines?
Well, I mean,
we still
what
don't
was
like
it?
your front 242
No, they
records.
don't. No.
So how did you guys first come about? You had quite a big dub collection before you'd even started DJing, you were saying. And where were you picking up these records?
You know, I would say it was a modest enough dub collection, you know, but I maybe was one of the, you know, the few lads at my school that had any dub records, you know, but I had a lot of punk records as well, and when you buy maybe, even if from you're very small, like I was buying a record every week from I was 10 or 11 years old, you know, so you end up with a lot of records, and then when I had more pocket money and I wee part-time job. I was buying more records. So,
Yeah. But you got the bug for DJing from that.
I
After
did
a while.
indeed. I did indeed.
So what was the next stage in your kind of like path?
Well, to try and organise somewhere that I could play the records for myself, you know, because it wasn't really, you know, say things were different there. Then you had like sort of, it's all residencies, you know, but we didn't even refer to it as residency. It was just the DJ in the club, and that was that. So if you wanted to cut something out for yourself, then it was a case of organising it and, you know, getting some people together and getting a sound system, making some flyers and trying to get people along. And that I could have been in a house or in a club or under the street somewhere in a tunnel or in a warehouse or anywhere. It was just we could manage to do that, you know.
Cool.
I think Heath was playing Edinburgh. At
Yeah,
the
I had a
time.
slightly different experience because I got roped into doing this night in Edinburgh that didn't really it didn't work out because it got invaded by football casuals, which Edinburgh had a huge problem with at that time. And basically the club was ended because there was this huge fight broke out in the club. But then we turned the club around, made it a members only club and turned it into this club called Pure, which was just happened to be there at exactly the right place at the right time. And from week one it exploded as the rave scene exploded. So it was by sheer good fortune of being there at that point in time that that club ran for 10 years, that we had an incredibly successful club that grew up with the birth of the rave scene and house and techno.
I mean, Pure was one of, for me, the most important club in the UK, definitely, and the club that was the first club to bring, you know, many Chicago and
Jeff Mills, Plastic Man, all these people we were bringing over when people didn't really know who they were, but it was just something we were really into. It. Like I say, it was serendipity being in that place at the right time. I've been so passionate about this music that was new and evolving that people had never heard before. They'd never heard it at that volume before.
And something happened to Edinburgh as well. But Edinburgh was a great place for clubs back then. And,
For a
and
few
really
years,
isn't now, you know?
it was the best place probably in Scotland, and then over time that's sadly diminished a little bit.
Cool. Well, what we got lined up next?
Okay, well, can continue in the dub vibe. I mean, Jamaican music and the influence of Jamaican music is something that's always been really important to both of us. And we do a night once a year called Bucky Skank, which is all about playing nothing but music that originated in or was inspired by music from Jamaica. This is a British record. It was a band called Meet Me Manifesto. This is from mid 80s, and it was just how dub started to permeate into sample-based and electronic music.
Do you understand that the shotgun behind your ear, motherfucker?
A spokesman at the Health Ministry said, to talk repeatedly about AIDS will cause the public to panic. Tourism will certainly be affected.
music is an art form. Rock and roll is here to stay.
So we're talking a little bit about Pure and those early nights that you were kind of residents at. What was the kind of musical policy of clubs back then?
I mean, it was quite open because back then the genre diversification was, it hadn't quite got quite as narrowed down to I'm into tech house, I'm into deep house. It was it was a lot more mixed up. You'd have clubs that were a bit houseier, but I think in general, especially in the 90, 91, 92, you were hearing all sorts of things in clubs. It was a lot more mixed up because the music was at such an interesting point where it was developing and people were open, and it was so new to people that they were open on maybe a much wider range of sounds. As the 90s progressed, clubs would tend to develop then lines of it was more of a techno club, it was more of a house club. Pure was always, I mean, the name Pure was kind of a piss take on musical purism, which is something that just has never made any sense to me. So Pure was just, although a lot of people remember it as a techno club, it was just about playing the best electronic dance music, whatever that was.
Yeah,
be that
some of the bigger Pure events I attended, that was really the thing about that was a diversity of artists who went as well. I mean, I chose that last record because I've been thinking, I was thinking about hypnotic music this morning when I was getting records ready for the show and that, and and I was thinking, well, Keith and I were talking the other day about Hawkwind, and Hawkwind's something that I associate with Pure.
Yeah.
and that was a record by Noi called Halagallo, but that kind of hypnotic, psychedelic, beaty music is, is something that I wouldn't have ruled out of a pure part.
Well, I mean, we always had this idea that we would try to introduce people to things that they wouldn't otherwise experience, and we would try and come up with crazy ideas. So one time we did this big party in this place in Glasgow called the Barrowlands, and the lineup was Hawkwind and the Aphex Twin, who are polar opposites, especially audience-wise, and it was a really interesting thing to have these two very different audiences in the same place. But as the night progressed, they became both appreciated the other one's thing, even though it was something completely out of their experience zone, and both ended up being into what the other one was in. And I think people are a lot more open-minded than they're often given the credit for, and interested in hearing things. I think the internet has completely liberated that. The record Johnny played there, Noi, I first heard about Noi when I was a teenager, but it took me about another 15 years to hear them because I couldn't find the records. They weren't available. I could never see them in second-hand shops, whereas now I could just instantly, it's all there at your fingertips, which is a wonderful thing, a wonderful tool. It was really frustrating back then not being able to hear.
I never owned that record till about 1992 or something, and it was Andrew Devine, actually,
who's another Glasgow Northern Soul
DJ,
DJ.
and a huge record collector. And, he's known for playing psych and 60s soul records and stuff like that. But at his party, he used to play that Noi record amongst all this other stuff. And and that's it. The area that he works in soul records, that could be considered a very purist area. But his party was, again, back then was diverse in what he was playing.
But you couldn't have bought that record even if you wanted to. There was no eBay Discogs.
No.
Glasgow second-hand shop would have it.
Or buy it on a mail order list or something, So.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking about that the other day. A lot of people kind of badmouth Discogs because of the crazy prices, but for what it's like, I can just go on there and...
It's an amazing tool, and there's so many amazing records on there for like 49 pence. Quite often I'll dig out a record I haven't played for over a decade, and I bet this is worth a fortune, and I'll go on, and it's like 19 pence maximum price. Yeah. And yet, quite often the records, the grey records, are they're cheap, but just people don't know about them. And quite often, it gets a record being played on Boiler Room, and then suddenly the price will go crazy.
I've had that before. I actually had that before with something had on there, and I was watching Boiler Room, and someone played it, and then 10 minutes later it sold. So let's talk about you kind of collecting yourselves, and how much are you looking for music to play in clubs? How much is it just music that you like and you hear?
I mean, for me, half and half. I'll try and find music that'll cover both bases. But even if I wasn't DJing, if I wasn't doing this for a living, I think all my spare money would go on buying music. I'm just always interested in hearing things I haven't heard before from all parts of the world. Sometimes you hear people go, I'm just bored of music. How can you be bored of music? You could never hear all the music that's out there in 1,000 lifetimes. There's always new things to hear and discover. So always looking for things, and certain things will lead you to other things. Like that Noi record led me to the one I'm going to play next, which was some guy from some small state in the United States who was making music in the early 80s with a synthesizer, making the records himself, selling them himself. No one ever heard of them, and it took another 20 years for people to suddenly go, wow, this guy's music was amazing. This one's particularly interesting because he made the sleeve, so it's encased in plaster, and it's got a string attached, so when you buy the record, you have to make the decision, do I destroy the sleeve by pulling the string? And of course, it's a no-brainer. You want to hear the record, but that's where a record collector might have a different mentality. Oh, I'm not going to pull the string because it's just about owning the object.
All right, well, let's give it a listen.
Okay, this is kind of music I love that loads of people don't like, but I think it's amazing.
Cities of the plain, I could have wanted you, but then there were so many places to retire there, to sit back and watch the legs and faces, to contemplate the quality of our interaction. places to retire there. Cities of the plain. We could have had time to sweep the floors and yet keep our minds clear and watch the smoke debris rise above us to heaven. In the cities of the plain, I could have wanted you, but then there were many places to retire there. But then there were many places to sit back and watch the legs of the faces and to contemplate the quality of our interaction. The quality of our interaction, and yet keep our mind clear.
In a restrained manner, playing for time. I worn my elbows down to the bone for you. I worn my elbows down to the bone for you. I worn my elbows down to the bone, down to the bone. I worn my elbows down to the bone for you. How can you wear your elbows down for me? How can you wear your elbows down for me? How do you wear your elbows down that make for me them shillings and pounds? How can you wear your elbows down for me? I make you money by
All right, so the next thing I wanted to speak to you guys about is through putting on parties and DJing regularly, you've gathered a bit of a following and people started to book you abroad, which for any kind of travelling DJ is a great excuse to pick up a load more records that you wouldn't usually come into contact with. So are there any trips in particular or places?
I mean,
that
quite a few, especially if we go outside Europe, because you tend to have a bit more time. Quite often, if we're playing in Europe, you're in and out, and you don't really have time to check out the local shops. But if we go to the States or South America or Japan, we'll always have a little bit of time. And those places happen to have amazing record shops. I've got a deep love of Brazilian music, which is this also timely. World Cup about to begin. So going there, records that I just simply couldn't find anywhere else, you can find them there relatively easy for, good prices. But you also then find stuff that it's so cheap that maybe you never knew, and discover all these things that you're prepared to take a risk on. Next one I'm going to play is a Brazilian guy called Tom Zé. This was actually sampled by Amory, but in the late 60s, Brazil had a dictatorship, so we can't imagine what that was like to have everything, all our culture censored. So back then, music was censored, so they had to find a way to be subversive. The music they made was subversive, but they couldn't say anything subversive. But this was a great example of how to pass the... Can you see it? How to get round that. So that looks like it's a picture of an eyeball. So that's fine, you can release that. But you actually find out that it's a marble stuck up someone's asshole. So, it was a way to put your finger up to which was a very dangerous thing. And some other musicians at that time literally had to leave the country and come and live in London. So this is Tom Zé.
Guta me look love me.
Guta me look love me.
Taxi, destaque, taxi.
Taxi, destaque, taxi.
Oh, tiki boutique, tiki gamu.
Tiki boutique, tiki gamu.
Oh, toxi rock me.
Toxi rock me.
La 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 la.
La 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 la.
Oh, le 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 le.
Le 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 le. Me look love me.
Tac sotaque, destaque taxi.
Tac sotaque, destaque taxi.
Oh, tiki boutique, gamu.
Tiki boutique, tiki gamu.
Oh, toxi rock me.
Toxi rock me.
La 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 la.
La 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 la.
Oh, le 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 le.
Le 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 le.
Bob diga, Jimmy renda assim. Cai cigano, cai canonibal. Já arrangiu Century Fox, Galvania, Cigarettes, Billy Haley, Holly Flex, Johnny Shop. Yeah. Bob diga, Jimmy renda assim. Cai cigano, cai canonibal. Já arrangiu Century Fox, Galvania, Cigarettes, Billy Haley, Holly Flex, Johnny Shop. Johnny Shop. Oh, Johnny Shop. Oh, Johnny Shop. Yeah. Me look love me.
Guta me look love me.
Tac sotaque, destaque taxi.
Tac sotaque, destaque taxi.
Oh, tiki boutique, gamu.
Tiki boutique, tiki gamu.
Oh, toxi rock me.
Toxi rock me.
La 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 la.
La 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 la.
Le 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 le. Bob diga, Jimmy renda assim. Cai cigano, cai camonibó. Já rangiu Century Fox, Galvin Mia, Cigarette, Billy Holly, Holly Flex, Shop, 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 Shop. Yeah, hey, hey. Bob Dica, Diga, Jimmy Redaci, Cai Cigano, Cai Camonicó. Já rangiu Century Fox, Calvin Mia, Cigarettes, Billy Holly, Holly Flex, Jenny Shop, 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 Shop. Oh Jenny Shop, 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 Shop. Oh Jenny Shop, 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 Shop. Oh Jenny Shop, 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 Shop. Yeah, 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 yeah. Me look, love me.
Toda me look, love me.
Tac, tac, sotaque, destaque, tac, chi.
Tac, sotaque, destaque, tac, chi.
Oh, tique, boutique, tique, tigamo.
Tique, boutique, tique, tigamo.
Se rock, rock me.
All right, so that's from one of you. You've been to Brazil a few times.
Yeah,
Yeah, we've been
4 or 5
yeah,
times.
4 or 5 times, yeah.
And what kind of place what Brazilian record stores like? Are they? I've
Yeah,
seen
it's like
videos.
flea markets, the
Yeah.
ones where you find all the really good records.
Yeah,
and
a
they're
very
content-
run-down mall that would sell sports socks and plastic things, and then there would be a record store that may not even be open. The guy might come and open it up for you.
Yeah.
And
and quite often in terrible condition. And
Yeah.
you have to really try and clean them up when you get back.
yeah, yeah. But there's stuff to be had.
All right, so from Brazil to Japan, you were saying?
Yeah, yeah.
So there's
We were just talking about traveling and getting a chance to go to record shops. This record here, I think you pronounce it Maria. There's one area in Tokyo, Shibuya, isn't it? Shinjuku, which has got a very high concentration.
Well, so does Shibuya, but this was
yeah.
in Shinjuku.
Yeah, Shinjuku, you know, and there's really you know, some of the shops are so specialist in what the shopkeeper decides to sell, and you know.
So there was one shop that only sold records that the guy knew Daniel Baldelli had played in a DJ set. That was all he would sell.
Yeah,
They're quite obsessive about collecting records, and there's a whole kind of thing of a lot of the records from Western countries were bought by Japan.
Well, that's
and that's why they've got so many of them.
This one store, Eurasia, it was almost like the shopkeeper was channeling us. I think he was looking at what I was picking out, what Keith was at, and suddenly he put on this record, and we were like, looked at each other, and I
ran to the counter, and Johnny got there first.
I got there first, got this record, which is great. And then, I don't know, I got it, I was very pleased with myself. And
I was so pissed off.
And we're going up the street, and Keith turned on his heel, and he's like, I'm going back to see. I'm sure he's got another one of them. Right enough, the guy pulled out another one. And
He's trying to get rid of them.
Yeah, he's probably got boxes of them under the counter.
Well, anyhow, we like it. I've since did a bit of research on the producer and that, and he produced some very bad sort of avant-garde jazz records after this. But this is kind of like a.
But I've been trying to license this for ever since, and I've had endless bizarre correspondences with various Japanese labels trying to find out who owned it, and then finally find out who owned it, and then they were, yes, you can do it, and then went AWOL, haven't heard anything for 18 months, so maybe one day this will get reissued by us.
Cool. So from that and traveling around DJing a lot, do you ever find yourself getting pretty fatigued by music or dance music in general?
I mean, occasionally, sometimes you just want to hear silence, maybe especially after a long weekend. Dance music's a weird one. I don't ever really listen to it for pleasure, except in a club. I think it's designed to be heard in that environment. And people that listen to techno all day, I'm like, well, how can you do that? But obviously, I spend a lot of time listening to it to find new records to play. Still love that music, but for me, that is a club-based music and not something I would sit and listen to. But I never really get tired of listening to music per se. You know, there's always things I really enjoy listening to, and I try and make time to just sit and listen to music and relax and space out or whatever, just purely for pleasure.
Is that quite often new bits you found, or is there a lot of going back through your collection?
There's a lot of going back. You know, go through phases of being into things and rediscovering things, and I love finding new things. To me, I always think music is, if it's new to me, it's new. So I mean, the next thing we're going to play, which is something both Johnny and I happen to bring today, you know, it's from the late 60s. It's this guy called Damon. It was a private press psychedelic record which got reissued. We both bought the reissue. Don't really care whether it's the original or the reissue, but to us it was a new record because we'd never heard it before, even though it was 40 years old. And I think that's the way I think about music, more than it's got to be new. Doesn't matter when it's from, it's still new if it's new to your ears.
I think you know, with working in the environment we work in, you know, 2-3 nights at the weekends, and we play quite long sets sometimes as well. And I think you do experience certain tiredness sometimes with your ears, and I think that kind of quite punishing environment is something that maybe and the music you associate with that is maybe something I don't maybe go near that much on a Monday and Tuesday, and it's like Keith said.
By Wednesday you got the Jeff Mills 12 inches
in the car and everything. First my breakfast, you know. Aye. But yeah, you know, we're both work as producers as well, you know. So I don't, even if I'm programming or something, I don't really want to do that on a Monday and Tuesday, you know. And I find myself going back very often and something that I find very comforting or something, you know, maybe for want of a better word. Just something. I was thinking about that record the other day. I'll pull it out and listen to it, you know. And I you know, really, you know, I appreciate what Keith said there. But if it's new to you, it's new, really. You know, it doesn't matter what, you know, it's 100 years old or not. You know,
you can definitely sort of find records that are 20 years old that sound as good as anything
today,
I mean, or they've predicted what music is going to be like today.
Yeah, I spent last week listening to, you know, Turkish music, instrumental music from almost 100 years old, recordings from the 1920s, you know, and that's, you know, that was new to me.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
But also the production of all these records, we think we're in this technologically advanced age, which of course we are. But you know, the production that was going on lots of records in the past, there's records from the 50s, 40s, the production, the sound recording of them is just phenomenal. And there's something about just basking in the space of the sound those records were recorded in.
I think that's
quite
exactly it.
breathtaking.
It's not genre or anything. It's really about the overall sound that was achieved, and with some of those earlier recordings that has a particular feeling, you know, and if there's, you know, some of them that resonate with you particularly, I think then you really go back to that record a lot.
Just say the song.
Yeah.
Whenever we're not together, in days of sunshine or stormy weather, don't you feel me loving you? in the sunlight or the moonlight, in the dark night when the time's right. Don't you feel me loving you? In the sunlight or the moonlight, in the dark night when the time's right. Don't you feel me loving you? Whenever we're not together, in days of sunshine or stormy weather, don't you feel me loving you? This time
So that's something new. Played quite right alongside something a lot older and totally fits. So we're getting towards the end of the show. We've only really scratched the surface. I don't really know if we can call this a collections because we've only gone into like 4 records.
I mean,
each.
it's been a little bit all over the place, but I mean, it kind of reflects, I think, what we're about, and we are into things that are all over the place. And,
And we both brought far too many records.
Yeah.
probably
yeah, we
enough.
could probably be here for another 10 hours.
Standardly.
Yeah, and yeah, I think we've just been pulling them out
Yeah.
ad hoc, but
That's all good.
Yeah.
But we're going to take it back to where we kind of started and where it kind of started for you guys.
Well, where it started for John, I mean, Jamaican music's always been something that I've loved and never stopped loving, and I always somehow try and fit it into.
well,
somehow-
you love it more than me now.
Yeah, maybe I love it more than you. Yeah, I'm all about the John Rastafari. But it's something I never understand. Quite often I meet people that I hate reggae, and I can't. I don't understand that. It just doesn't compute with me. But people always get really, really angry about it. Sometimes I'll play in a set, and people go, "That ruined my night," and I'm like, "How can that one record have ruined your night? Open your ears, open your mind." Anyway, okay, not everyone likes everything, but it is something that I particularly like. So the last one it's a British digital dancehall record from the early '80s, but it just, to me, it's kind of sums up the ecstaticness and the joyfulness of music out of Jamaica.
What a wonderful feeling, what a wonderful feeling that I am seeking, that I am seeking. What a wonderful feeling, what a wonderful feeling that I am seeking, that I am seeking. What a wonderful feeling, what a wonderful feeling that I am seeking, that I am seeking. I've been looking very hard for that love of mine. She could be in, she could be anywhere, she could be very near. I want my woman so exquisite, oh yeah now, so that my love for her will never freeze. I'm still looking, and my head is turning, but my heart is waiting. What a wonderful feeling, what a wonderful feeling that I am seeking, that I am seeking. What a wonderful feeling, what a wonderful feeling that I am seeking, that I am seeking. Whoa, yeah. Now that I've found someone new in my life, I want that girl to be my wife. Now that she's gone and left me all alone, and now I have no one else to call my own. I'm still looking, and my head is turning, but my heart is waiting. What a wonderful feeling, what a wonderful feeling that I am seeking, that I am seeking. What a wonderful feeling, what a wonderful feeling that I am seeking, that I am seeking. Oh, oh, I've been looking very hard
Right, so
There's the money shot. Come on.
we're pretty much at the end of the show. We've been joined by ABBA to see us out.
Woof.
Unless anyone's got anything else to play.
We've got lots of things we could play, but
Yeah.
maybe wrap it up there.
Johnny's got to be somewhere.
Yeah.
So thanks lots for watching. Hopefully we'll do something similar again soon and go into a specific genre in more depth
I
or
think that'd be a
something.
great idea. That'd be a good idea.
But yeah, thanks a lot for listening.
Bye-bye.
That's us.
Thanks, George.